is teaching on Madhyamika Avatara. Geshe will be teaching chapters 18 and 14. As you know, Geshe has initiated a small revolution here in Tibet House, and on many, many occasions in the past, Geshe has been kind enough to teach at the Deepak Institute, and we would have been there but for this virus. So without much further ado, I express my gratitude to Geshe for accepting to teach once again, and may I request you, Geshe.
Okay, it is a great joy. Thank you, Naresh, thank you so much, and Andrew Miller also, and thank you to our director Sab and Pravinji and all of you. It's a great joy for me to be with all of you, and seems like it's not going to be like a new teaching. It's going to be like a continuation because all the participants, they are very familiar to me. Okay, so basically, it is a great honor for me to always be a part of Deepak Institute, which Zongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, with a great vision, started the center for multiple purposes and with the multiple dimensions to spread the Dharma, and also to make it accessible the secular activities as well. So that is something so unique, and all the staff of Deepak. In fact, it was in the middle of the COVID that Prashantji, I think he sent me a text message, and then I replied, and then it was through this that he invited me to be in Deepak for the like 1 or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 month or 2 months, saying that Delhi must be very hot. And I said, yes, I miss the Deepak's beautiful, fresh and clean air. And then he said that, please come to Deepak. Okay. And then I said, okay, I'll surely contact you if the need be. And then the follow-up was done by Pravinji. Pravinji was even more insistent that I should come. And then, okay, so this is beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, so the topic that we have chosen, this is so precious, is about emptiness. And in fact, believe it or not, the effort that Johnson Rinpoche is making with this 84,000 translation, if you read the translations there, given that the people who are attending this class or the course are mainly English dependent, the audience, and for you, the 84,000 translation is an incredibly precious gift from Zongsa Khyentse Rinpoche for all of us. And that if you read those sutras, believe it or not, just read any of the sutra there, somehow you will see the mention of the emptiness directly or indirectly. And most, like 90% of these teachings, we see the description, explanation of the emptiness, reference me to emptiness directly. So this says, from there you can see that finally the teachings of the Buddha, it has having two sides to this. One is the affective side, and others with cognitive side, transforming the cognitive aspect of the mind to bring about transformation of our affective side of the mind. So that is finally what marks you as a happy person, unhappy person, so forth, and what marks you, whether your mental defilements are cleansed, whether your true nature comes out, is all determined by the the say the affective side, how you're able to adapt to the world, how you're able to adapt in a country, in a place, in a family, and so forth. For that, we see that the cognitive thought process plays a very important role to bring about transformation in the affective, the aspect of our mind. And so this course that we're doing on Mulamadhyamakakarika, or the fundamental wisdom of the middle way, or the Zao in Tibetan. And of course, we see that it has like 27 chapters. They're all directly related to emptiness, explaining emptiness. And so we have chosen chapter 18 and chapter 24. And I personally feel extremely meritorious that somehow, because of Deer Park, I'm getting the opportunity to revisit these extremely precious texts. And then the participants, as I said earlier, and in fact I could see that all of you are like my longtime friends. We already know each other for last at least like 1 year, 2 years, or in some cases like Lorena Wong, about like 12, 13 years. Lorena Wong, raise hand. Yeah, like 13 years. She was the host of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Guatemala and then other places here, like I think 12, 10 years ago. And this is how we can know each other, and she can attend teachings, classes, courses in Dharamsala. She was there in Dharamsala for some time and so forth. So this is, what I'm saying is that it's like the already the longtime friends, and Chandila here, the former director of CESL. She was from Bangalore. So we know each other. And then the teaching on emptiness is extremely precious. Extremely precious. And from my little experience of my exposure to Dharma, with emptiness, with bodhicitta, what I would say is that a few days ago, which was the part of the Nalanda Diploma course undertaken by Tibet House. So a participant asked one question. The question was, she heard about the teaching of dharma. What is that? And she said that she feels a personal connection with this. So I said that basically, if you look at all these teachings, like dharma and so forth, the treasure, the teaching of the pure vision and so forth, the subject matter remains the same. Subject matter remains to explore the subjective clear light, to explore the objective clear light, and then in the spirit of compassion, bodhicitta, the radiance of bodhicitta. So this is subject matter packed in different forms. And some of these teachings wrapped with the emotional, the emotional commitments. Subject matter remains the same, but wrapped in emotional commitments. For example, I remember one of my incredible great inspirations, one great teacher, and he with his family, and I was keen to learn from him. He's a great scholar from all different traditions, like language and so forth, language, literature, dharma, and so forth. And once he received, with his family, he received the daughter's New Year card. And what is this New Year card? This New Year card, in terms of material, it was the same card was produced like 1,000 copies. But to this gentleman, this card that he received from his daughter, very young daughter, little daughter, this was so precious, not because the material is special, not because the writing is very special. Writing is just a small girl's writing, and the material is just like $50 material. That's it. But then you look at this is the emotional commitment that he was feeling to this piece of the envelope, that is coming out of love. So this cannot, what he's feeling cannot be bought, cannot be valued in money. It's so precious for him because he could feel the love from his daughter. So likewise, his teachings like Dharma and so forth. So inside, the subject matter is the same, just like the piece of paper, ink and so forth, like emptiness, bodhicitta, the clear light and so forth. Just as said, that is the subject matter, but wrapped in the spirit of the emotional commitment. So therefore, somebody who feels his karmic connection with this particular teacher, like Guru Masabal and so forth, so they could feel that it's the same thing, emptiness, bodhicitta, clear light, just these three things. Yeah. And then when seen from the spirit of this special connection, then you feel it's so valuable. Finally, how valuable is the particular object? For example, like this the use. How valuable is this? It's all determined by how you receive it. So, for example, the same food, the same juice, the same food, if you receive so much of love and affection, you take it, you digest it very differently. So likewise, the point is that finally the subject matter remains the same. Sometimes there is a danger that people try to exaggerate too much, and then it can be like a naivety that, oh, there's a special teaching, which for example, say even today, nowadays, some people said, oh, this is a special teaching, but the others would not get. And then if you check it, we see that this was the same thing which the Buddha already taught. And Buddha did not really, say have anything, something to be kept as secret. So the point is that these are so precious teachings, but keep in mind that the wisdom of emptiness is the one which will liberate you. Wisdom of emptiness is the one which will remove your mental defilements. And this you can teach in any form you like, or you can receive it in any form you like. So with respect, you received it, there's tremendous power. Without respect, you will not get anything. It's just like intellectual dry exercise. Even those, some of the teachings which in Tibet were maintained so confidential and secret, so nowadays it's just disclosed so easily. And people, nowadays they receive it, and then sometimes they get certificate to say that I received these teachings. So like one is entitled to pass down this teaching to others. Just receive it once and then like a certificate, say yes, I got the certificate from this teacher. So this is what is known as degeneration. So finally, the point is that the wisdom of emptiness is the liberating factor, it's the liberating path, and that the bodhicitta is the one which makes all these teachings precious. Because the bodhicitta is the one which aspires, which has the greatest of the motivation aspiration to benefit all beings. So with this, whatever little thing that this person gets is so precious because it's for sentient beings. So more intense your bodhicitta, I say anything that you get from anybody, so that becomes very precious. Whereas the bodhicitta spirit is not there, and the spirit of commercialization, okay, I received this and I received this teaching, okay, then you teach, and then there's some transactions happening. In some cases, I think that this is maybe necessary. In some cases where people don't value it, if only there's a transaction of some charges happening, then people value this. So this is where the degenerate stage. So the point is, what I'm saying is that it's so precious for all of us, not only you, for me also. I learned this, this same text, Mulamadhyamakakarika, so many times. So even today, when I'm refreshing myself, doing the revision, I could feel how fortunate all of us are, including myself, that we are coming in contact with this incredibly precious teaching on emptiness. Okay, so with this in mind, I wholeheartedly like to thank dear Paul for this and all the stuff there. And as Nariji said, that that would have been wonderful if we are all there in Deer Park. But I'm not too sure if it really happened in Deer Park. How many of you from in this group can actually physically come there? Uh, most of you of India, some of you of in Europe. So I don't know how many of you can actually be there in person. But again, this is thanks to the technology. Okay, so this is one thing. So with this in mind, the why I'm sharing this is that if you look at the Buddha's biography, the past lives, Buddha's past lives, there was a mention that Buddha, he was born as somebody who is so enthusiastic, interested, enthusiastic, committed to learn, to knowledge, to be imbibed in one's being. And then then he met, and he himself was a great prince. Then he met the saint, and he requested for dharma. And the saint said that, yes, I'll teach you dharma. But it's not that easy for you to receive it. And he said, I would be happy to do anything that you would suggest, you advise. No, you cannot do it. It requires a tremendous commitment from the person, otherwise it will not happen. I said that I'm ready to die for this. Whatever you teach, one line, even for that, if I be needed to die, I'll be happy to do it. And the great the saint said that this teaching must be inscribed. And he said, yes, of course. How? Not on paper. Your skin must be used as the paper. Your bone must be used as the pen. Your blood must be used as the ink. Only then I'll give the teaching. Then he was so happy. The one who later, after many aeons, became what is now revered as the Buddha Shakyamuni. He was so happy. Then he, without hesitation, he broke his, the arms and so forth. And then he was literally doing it. And then he said, please give me the teaching as soon as possible, otherwise I may die. Because he just struggling to survive because his bones are broken, his skin, already ripped off, and the blood coming out. So he said, please give me the teaching, otherwise within a short span of time I will die. Then what teaching was given? A teaching on impermanence was given. That's it. And even to receive a teaching on impermanence, this amount of the respect, the predecessor or the Buddha Shakyamuni, he paid way before he became the Buddha. So what I'm saying is that the human emptiness is so precious. So with this mind, in fact, I personally in my life, what I noticed was that when we started to have some teachings on emptiness, then sometimes what happens is that the people who I expect that, okay, this person will be there and so committed and made the commitment way ahead of time and very much looking forward to it. And finally, the last minute, this person had to go through some difficult time, was going through difficult times. And then something happened, this happened, that happened, so they could not come. And whereas somebody who's very unexpected people, they come. That's very strange. So that happened to me on several occasions with emptiness teaching, and in some cases with the Bodhicitta teaching. The Bodhicitta teaching here in Tibet House, okay, teaching Bodhicitta. And then, so in those days, particularly when it was not for the only through registration, some people who are totally unrelated, meaning they're totally unexpected, they showed up, and I don't know whether they also knew whether it's Tibet House. They showed up, and then it so happened it's the day one of the Bodhicitta teaching. Wow, it's so amazing. This is a karmic connection. So, no doubt, all of us, we have some karma to, to learn about bodhicitta, to know about emptiness. And the point is that that our, say, the just before this attended class, I was reading through some sutras. I also was reading the Lama Tsongkhapa's, the Sungbum teachings of the Lama Tsongkhapa there. So at one point there was a discussion with another teacher. So that is more on the exhaustion aspect and the emptiness part, and then how misconceptions can come about, and so forth. So all these things were there. So there we can see the need for us to become Buddhas in order to help the beings the way in accordance with their temperaments, in accordance with their mental dispositions, in accordance with the interests and so forth. There's something so unique. The need to become a Buddha is so much felt reading those sutras, and the Buddha was very clearly indicating the different kinds of temperaments of the people. Okay, so with this in mind, on the wisdom of emptiness, and given that I can see that most of you are from the early classes, either from the master's course, the diploma course, and so forth. And I'm just wondering if there's anybody who is not a part of any of these two courses, not a master's course, not the diploma course. I don't really think. Okay, Pallavi, are you one? You are not from any of these two.
No, I wasn't a part. Yeah, I wasn't a part of either of these two.
Okay, which means you are part of Nagarjuna student in your past life. Yeah, it must be because you come suddenly. Okay. Yes, auspicious. Yeah, I'm really impressed. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so it does happen. We never know. We never know what are the connections with Nagarjuna. Yes. Okay. With this in mind, this teaching on the wisdom and emptiness is not that easy. It's not easy. At the same time, it is so precious. It is like, say, without a particular medicine, if there's no cure for the illness, then however difficult it is, however bitter the medicine is, however expensive the medicine is, somehow we have to get it. We have to take it. Likewise, the wisdom of emptiness, and of course, initially is quite challenging. And once you get a feel of this, then you will start to feel the joy, and then you will start to feel the heaviness of the mental, say, the defilements. They are becoming thinner. This is what one feel. Okay. With this in mind, with this in mind, the point is that we have the two chapters here, and the first, I'd like to do the chapter 24 first. Chapter 24 is about examining the Four Noble Truths. Examining the Four Noble Truths. And if you don't have this text with you, how many of you have this text with you? Or how many you don't have this text with you? Raise hands. How many don't have this text with you? That's strange. Lorena, Savannah, you don't have this text. You don't have it. You don't have the blaze. Huh? You don't have this place? Okay, if you have this place, it is there. It is there. So which means that you are bringing embarrassment to me, right? So you have been with me for so many years, and then you don't know what is in this book, right? You do not go through the table of contents. Okay, if you look at the table of contents, we must go through the table of contents of this book. And if you don't have it, just write to us and we'll be happy to send the soft copy of this, the link download the soft copy of this. Okay, so it was already sent to you before. So the program coordinator said that she sent it even now to the chat. If you check it, you'll find it. Okay, but don't worry. Because this is a technical text, we like to have it, the screen share as well, so that we will. And then, whereas if you have the soft copy for yourself and the hard copy for yourself, that's the best because you can make notes. That's the point. Okay. Okay, chapter 24. There, what we do is that I'll give you that it's going to be, of course, what is expected. The ideal situation would be that we need to have the overall panoramic view of what emptiness is. Panoramic view of what emptiness is, and only then we study chapter 24. But don't worry. I can see that many of you are already exposed to emptiness concept, but if you are not exposed to it, still don't worry. Chapter 24, I'll use this as a broad picture. What's the benefit of understanding emptiness, and what's the demerit of not understanding emptiness, and then what kind of discussions are going there between those who accept emptiness and who reject emptiness. What kind of discussions happening, and then on that basis, that you are expected to remain a neutral spectator of these discussions. Neutral, and then just you can take sides only when you find that okay, this makes sense. This is be very meaningful. And if you don't feel it meaningful, no need to reject it, but no need to accept it. Just keep it neutral. You should get an overall picture. Once you get the overall picture, then we move to chapter 18. So chapter 18, I'm expecting for all of us to go a little deeper into emptiness. Okay. With this in mind, for chapter 24, we need few things to be learned, few things as background to make sense of the chapter 24. The first thing that we need to learn is about the very basic title. It says examination of the Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths. So when you speak about the Four Noble Truths here, at one point, at the request of the Shanti Yajnikji, we did the teaching on chapter 24 in Chogor Swimming Center in Bangalore. And we said examination of the Four Noble Truths, the title given in the root text. And then many people think that, okay, he's going to teach on Four Noble Truths. It is not. You're getting it? It's not going to be teaching on Four Noble Truths. People who are learning this, they are expected to know Four Noble Truths so well. So we're not going to learn what Four Noble Truths are. What we're going to learn is we are examining if the Four Noble Truths exist truly or not. If the Four Noble Truths exist as like a mirage, like a dream, or whether they exist objectively. This is what we are learning. We're not going to learn, for example, if I say that this flower is made in Japan, we're not going to learn this flower. We're going to learn where this flower is made from. You're getting it? Likewise, we're not going to learn about the Four Noble Truths. We're simply going to learn, say, whether or not the Four Noble Truths exist truly. And if the Four Noble Truths do exist truly, then what could be the problems for us? And say, if one realizes that the Four Noble Truths do not exist truly, then how it can help us to feel the hope that our problems can be brought to an end. But this is how it works. At the same time, I would not hesitate to give you an overview of the Four Noble Truths which the Buddha gave as a teaching as the first turning wheel of Dharma. Place, Sarnath. So there, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths in 3 sets, also referred to as the 12 repetitions. 12 repetitions, or the 12, that we say the 12 recitations. 12 recitations or the 12 repetitions. It's just a matter of translation. And we need to know what these 12 are. And then once we know that, then we'll go to the other points which we need to know as background. And then we'll go to the chapter 24. Okay, without these, again, going through chapter 24, we will find it very difficult. Okay, so the teaching of Four Noble Truths. The Buddha Shakyamuni remained silent for 49 days, not giving any teachings after becoming enlightened. Then at the request of the kings of the celestial beings, like Indra, Brahma, at the request of these kings of the god and goddesses, they, with their clairvoyance, they sensed that Prince Siddhartha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in order to benefit the beings. But at the point that he became enlightened, is not actually giving teachings. And then they descended to the 2 kings of the god and goddesses. They descended to the earth, made prostrations to the Buddha, and beseeched the Buddha, please turn the wheel of Dharma. And Buddha said, which means that the profound, peaceful, elaboration-free, clear-eyed, and non-composite. This is the ultimate reality that I've discovered. Finding no one who can fathom this teaching, I'd rather retire into the woods in silence. This is what the Buddha said. And then the kings of the god and goddesses, Indra, Brahma, they made more prostrations, offered the wheel of Dharma, offered the conch of the Dharma, and beseeching the Buddha, please don't remain silent, please turn the wheel of Dharma. And the Buddha assented to their request and turned towards the Varanasi, and then he turned the first wheel of Dharma. So there what the Buddha taught was the Four Noble Truths. And this is so important. And if you get some idea about the Four Noble Truths, not just intellectually, but experientially, if you're able to relate the Four Noble Truths experientially, then we see that our life, in a way, our life will become much easier, because I say oftentimes our problems are like the agitation, irritation, so forth. They are related to the outside, not really the seeing the overall nature of yourself, how your karmas play a role, how your afflictions play a role, how misconceiving the reality plays a role in this the misperception. So if you can have if one understands the Four Noble Truth and relate this to our day-to-day life, then our life will be much easier. And oftentimes what happens is that our sufferings are all because of the contaminant karmas. And contaminant karmas, they give rise to more sufferings. And the sufferings again agitate us more, and then again give rise to more sufferings, the more karmas, again give rise to, it's just a chain, it's just a cycle of the suffering, endless cycle of suffering. This is known as samsara, cyclic existence, involuntary cyclic existence. So the point is that how to get out of this. For that matter, if you can relate the Four Noble Truths, then the earlier we always tend to blame others, blame the environment, blame the government, blame the people, blame your place, blame your traffic, blame the so forth. Okay, so now the degree to which we blame outside will become less. That's very strange. As we reduce the tendency to blame outside and see the finally is all about my thought process inside, the more we tend to realize this, the more our mind will be calm. If you're able to realize this 50%, the 50% calmness will come to you. This is so precious. Okay, so this Four Noble Truths, the Buddha taught in 3 sets, in simple terms. It is taught in 3 sets, known as the Four Noble Teaching of the Four Noble Truths pertaining to identification. Number 1, the teaching of Four Noble Truths pertaining to the identification. Okay, the first set with 4 recitations related to the teachings of Four Noble Truths pertaining to the identification. The next one is a set of teaching of the Four Noble Truths pertaining to the practice related to the Four Noble Truths. Teaching of the Four Noble Truths. Second set, teaching of the Four Noble Truths related to the practice associated with the Four Noble Truths. And finally, the teaching of the Four Noble Truths related to the results that one accrues through the practice of Four Noble Truths. The first one is identification, the four recitations, and the next one is the practice, 4 recitations, and then the results of the practice, 4 recitations. 4 to 3 equals 12 recitations. Okay, so the first set is the superficially, it's very simple, but of course, we really need to work on this. The Buddha said, the first set of the 4, this is the truth of suffering. This is the truth of cause of suffering. This is the truth of the cessation suffering. And this is the truth of the path leading to cessation. So just to identify, help us to identify what is going within us. What's the problem? Truth of suffering, truth of cause of suffering, and how we can possibly be free from these 2. The truth of cessation suffering, that is your aspired goal, that your miseries will come to an end. And finally, how to cultivate this path, which can take you to the state of the freedom from all sufferings. So these 4 are being taught in the first set. In the second set, related to the practice, the Buddha indicated, the truth of suffering is to be identified. Truth of the cause of suffering is to be abandoned. Truth of the cessation suffering is to be actualized. And finally, the truth of the path leading to cessation is to be practiced or meditated upon. So this is the practice related, the practices that we have to, we are expected to do. So first, the truth of suffering is to be identified. So in our life, just see how we can identify say what we are going through. All these experiences, they're in the form of the truth of suffering. This is very important for us. It's very, number 1, it's not that easy. Number 2, what we call as English expression, that the ignorance is bliss. Without knowing these things, then when we don't confront with the immediate threat or immediate fear, we feel blissful. In actuality, so there is there are the series of problems, one of the other, awaiting us. They are right there. Say somebody who's just like, let's say this young girl, Ritvi, right? This young girl, Ritvi, we see that she's very young. And then she'll be in her, let's say, late teens, then the 20s, 30s, 40s. So we have all these problems. All of us, we've been through this age, like say 10, 20, 15, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so forth. So this is how we see that the life, our life, it is just that our ignorance blinds us from seeing the further away reality and the deeper reality. Okay, so with this, if we can say learning the truth of suffering is to be identified. So first, for example, nowadays the COVID, this is a very serious matter. In fact, many of my friends, luckily in India, many people they get sick and they recover. That's amazing. In India, many recovered. In fact, one of my friends, I came to learn that they suffered from, they were tested positive, and then they recovered. Even some, the elder people, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, they recovered. That's very encouraging. And then okay, the truth of suffering is to be identified. Then the truth of cause of suffering is to be abandoned. So knowing what the truth of suffering is, and then the cause of suffering is to be abandoned. And what are the causes? What are the causes of the suffering? This is something that we need to really explore. And okay, so this will do later. First, we'll complete these three sets. Then the truth of the cessations to be actualized. So where, say, if you really explore what kinds of suffering that we're going through, and if we check, if we ask ourselves, what do you want? I want this, I want that, and so forth. When you don't get these things, and of course some are very serious matters. When you don't get these things, and there's a tremendous fear there. For example, good health. If you don't have it, it gives rise to severe fear within us. So finally, we see that we are seeking to get rid of all the fears. Is one thing, and we are seeking happiness. These are the two realities, our aspirations. And you say you are a male or female, it doesn't matter. You're young, old, it doesn't matter. You're Buddhist, non-Buddhist, it doesn't matter. But the Indians, non-Indians, it doesn't matter. Everybody wants to get rid of the fears of life, and everybody wants to have the happiness. This is the point. Now, say in secular terms, what we call as the fear, to get rid of all the fears, freedom from all fears of life. Freedom from all fears of life, and only when we go through acutely difficult times, and we could see the immediate threats, severe threats, then you see that there's no way out of this other than to go through this, and then suddenly by some miracle, if you're able to get out of this, you can feel incredible ease. And I'm sure some of you might have that experience, and younger ones, you may not have that experience. Most young ones may not have that experience. Or anybody who have this experience, that you are on the verge to go through extremely difficult times, and then suddenly you found a way out, and then you feel such a relief, as though like you as a bird is released from the cage. Okay, how many of you felt that in your life at least once? Okay, Kim Louis, Paravi, Pooja, Lorena, Annie Sirila, Carolyn Ming, Frisla, Kim Louis, everyone, Chandila, Gelela. Yes. Okay, I think that is only for people like us, like 50 plus, but in the younger ones. That's interesting. Okay, so the point is that these experiences one has or one had, these are so precious. Let us not forget these experiences. Only when you realize that you can remember these experiences so well, vivid in your mind, then when you think about, okay, is this the end? Or this can repeat worse than this. It can repeat. You can have the problems worse than what you considered as the unbearable. These are the reality. These are the realities. Okay. So with this in mind, then the question arises whether or not there's an end to this. Now the COVID-19, when the COVID-19 first started to break out in India, and then almost like in all places it broke out almost the same time. everywhere in the world. When that happens, and after about like 2 weeks or 3 weeks time, people started to have go through really severe fear, anxiety, and so forth. And then often they describe this as a feeling of uncertainty. Where should I go now? Where should I go now? What is life? It's totally uncertain. There's a tremendous anxiety attack. There's a tremendous fear looming in our mind on that kind. So, this fear, when you really feel that, let us not forget these experiences. Now, people, they are, what is that? The people, they are like, now people, they go to the market, you see people crowded. In those days, no, you don't find the people outside in the first place. So now people, they become little, what's that? That's a word. Take for granted, okay, now nothing will happen to me because nothing happened thus far, right? And anything can happen to you the next, right? Just now, how many people are newly being tested positive? So for them, it never happened the last 7, 8 months. Now it's happening for the first time. But people, they live in, this is what is known as ignorance is bliss. Because it did not happen the last few months, now we have an illusion. We live in illusion that it will not happen to me. So they stop taking care of themselves. This is very unwise. Okay, so the point is that when these things happen, and then suddenly if you come to get a feeling that there's going to be vaccine, it's going to be easily available, then you will feel a tremendous relief, tremendous relief. That feeling, we should not forget it. So when you speak about nirvana, it is something of this kind where you can feel the freedom and the uncertainty. That how many felt the uncertainty when the first COVID breakout? How many felt uncertainty, fear, and uncertainty? Okay, all of us. So that feeling is so precious. Of course, nobody wants to have this feeling. It's very unpleasant, but it's so precious because this will give us a feeling. Some people, they feel this uncertainty, they simply want to get rid of this. And some people, they get this feeling and then they could see the broader picture of the world, yourself, in time and in space. Okay, this uncertainty is not confined to this life. This is not confined to 2020. They can aim, any new virus can come in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. We never know. And what about next life? We never know. This uncertainty, the degree is worst in the future. So with this in mind, some people, they could see that, okay, this uncertainty is there. So now how should I get out of this uncertainty altogether rather than just try to evade it? You getting it? Some people, they try to evade it. This is how ordinary. This is the mindset of the what we call as ordinary people. Very immature mindset, because they simply want to get out of this problem, and they cannot imagine, say, the greater potential, the potential for greater problems in the future. But some people, they could foresee that in the future anything can happen, worse than this can happen. So this uncertainty will continue to be there. It's not just today. It can become worse. So anybody who can think about this and on that basis see how to get out of this uncertainty altogether, not only this time, but all the perspective, the feeling of uncertainties in the future, how to get out of this. If this is what you can think of, you are a real spiritual practitioner. You are a real spiritual Dharma practitioner. If this is not happening, and then, okay, so when that happens, it's so scary, and then you tend to call somebody, and then you need a little bit of counseling so that my agitation will calm down. If this is what we are doing, then said whatever we're doing, say reading the text, or mantra recitations, meditation, whatever, these are all just very, very ineffective. Of course, these are not meaningless, but if the basic Dharma feeling is not coming, The first real Dharma feeling is the feeling of uncertainty of the entire universe in time and in space, not only now because of the COVID-19. So that is so important. That is so important. Let's not forget this. Okay, with this, then just imagine that I'll be free from this uncertainty altogether. That is nirvana. So that is the meaning of the truth of the cessation is to be actualized. And then finally, the truth of the path is to be meditated upon or to be practiced. Meaning that if you really want to achieve that state, don't expect some miracles happening. It is all with your own concerted effort that you can expect to get rid of this problem. Otherwise, don't expect some miracles happening. And for example, let's say that, okay, on the Nagarjuna, his text, I'm so precious meeting with his text. Okay, I'll sit there and from blessings, then my, let me say, this uncertainty will be removed altogether suddenly. If this is what is expected, then again, this is living in illusion. But of course, it's always amazing, even just to sleep while this teaching is happening, even that is so more precious than somebody not at all attending this. That's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah. Okay. So the point is that therefore, say it's amazing. If I also belong to this category, say during my earlier days, meaning when I was in my 20s, I had the same feeling that, oh, okay, Nagarjuna's text is available everywhere. The text is available everywhere. Oh, whereas this text, there's some wrapped up in a small, from a small book, wrapped up in a very expensive cloth. It's a very holy text, and this you are not allowed to open it, like this, and the girls are not allowed to touch it. It's all just nonsense. And in fact, the thing is that they are precious. They are very precious. Of course, you read it. You read it. It's all about emptiness. You're getting it? It's all about emptiness. There's nothing new. It's about clear light. It's about wisdom and emptiness. It's about bodhicitta. Once I was in Mumbai, and my friend invited me for a lunch, and I was there. And my friend, he also rented one of his rooms to somebody, a young boy meaning age like 20s. And when we were there, and this young boy was busy in his own room doing the mantra recitation. And then after about half an hour, he came out. What mantra he was doing? He was doing the Nijirin Sokagagai mantra, Namo Myo Rengiko. And then he asked me, then my host introduced him to me, we are being introduced mutually. Then he asked me, are you doing the chant? Do you do the chanting? If I say no, then I'm not doing Dharma for him. And then I do chant, but that is not my most important thing. I said, yes. Then he said, how many times you do? For him, this is Dharma. You chant, you are doing Dharma. If you don't chant, you are not a Dharma. Then I said, then he was so bold to ask all these questions to me. Then I started asking him question back. I told him that, do you know what this mantra is? What this chant is? Namo Myo Rengiko. What does it mean? Do you know what the meaning? And he said, I don't know. It's just said that I prostrate to the Lotus Sutra. I prostrate to the Lotus Sutra. This is meaning. And I told him how powerful, how effective your chant is. It's not going to be determined how the number of your chants. It's determined by your understanding, your feeling of reverence, your feeling of connection with this mantra. For that is determined by your understanding of the subject matter of the mantra. What's the subject matter? I prostrate to the Lotus Sutra. Why the Lotus Sutra is so important that you should prostrate to it? And anybody saying this is so meritorious. It must be very precious. I asked him, do you know why this Lotus Sutra is precious? If I say, I prostrate to the flower, I just say I prostrate to mobile. It's not holy, it's not sacred. But even you say I prostrate to Lotus Sutra, that is so precious. So Lotus Sutra must be very precious. So what makes the Lotus Sutra precious? I asked him, did you ever see a Lotus Sutra in the first place? I asked him. He said no. Then I told him that if you really want to reap the maximum benefit of reciting this chant, you must, first of all, get a Lotus Sutra. Read it. Get the meaning. Then you will see that chanting this mantra is precious. I told him. Then I told him that I don't chant this mantra, but I will tell you what is the meaning of Lotus Sutra right now. Then I told him about the dreamlike nature of all phenomena. And then my friend, the host somehow has a Lotus Sutra. He's a Muslim. He's a Muslim guy, and he's very open-minded. He brought a Lotus Sutra. And then I flipped through the pages. I showed exactly what I said. Everything is like a dream. I showed it to this Lotus Sutra. Everything is like a dream. When do you see the dream as dream? When do you see everything as a dream? Inside dream or outside dream? Outside the dream. When are you affected by the dream? Inside the dream or outside the dream? Outside the dream. So, only when you realize the dream as dream, then you wake up. You are not, you stopped to be affected by the contents of the dream. You stopped to be affected and you're being freed from the torments of the dream. This is a freedom. Therefore, this freedom is, given that this freedom is so precious, whatever text teaches this freedom, that text becomes precious. So the Lotus Sutra taught this freedom, how to wake up from the sleep of ignorance. So therefore, this subject matter, how to get freedom, that is so precious. This is what everybody is seeking. Whether you're Buddhist or not, it doesn't matter. Whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. Or whether you're rich or poor, it doesn't matter. Whether you're educated or uneducated, it doesn't matter. Everybody seeks to get out of the fears of samsara, get out of the fears of life. So that getting freed in the ultimate sense will happen only when you wake up from the sleep of ignorance. So that is what is taught in Lotus Sutra. Therefore, the Lotus Sutra is precious. Therefore, anybody who chants, I prostrate to Lotus Sutra, becomes meritorious. Okay, this how the discussion went. Okay, with this, at the moment what I'm discussing is the second set of the 4 recitations pertaining to the teaching of the Four Noble Truths related to the practice. And then finally, the results. The results related to the results, the set of 4. The Buddha taught, although the truth of suffering is to be identified, there is nothing to be identified. Although the truth of the cause of suffering is to be abandoned, there is nothing to be abandoned. And although the truth of the cessation is to be actualized, there is nothing to be actualized. And although the truth of the path leading to the cessation is to be practiced, but there's nothing to be practiced or nothing to be meditated upon. So this is just this is the very dichotomous. It's all internal inconsistencies there. Although suffering is to be identified, there's nothing to be identified. What's the meaning? Okay, and let me relate this to the suffering, and then we'll quickly go through the other 3. Although the truth of suffering is to be identified, there's nothing to be identified. Meaning that our efforts put to identify the truth of suffering happens before you wake up fully, before you fully wake up from the sleep of ignorance. In other words, while we are struggling, while we are suffering, our job is to identify what the suffering is. Once you achieve the resultant state, that is, once you wake up fully from the sleep of ignorance, once you are woken up fully, then at that point, you don't have to identify the suffering. Your job is done. your job is done. So although truth of suffering is to be identified at the learning stage, at the time of normal learning stage, there's nothing left to be identified. Although the truth of suffering is to be identified, there's nothing to be identified. Then the next, although the truth of cause of suffering is to be abandoned, there's nothing to be abandoned. So at this stage, when we are struggling, when we are seeking to achieve liberation from samsara, we have to put effort to abandon the cause of suffering. But once we reach the resultant state where we have already achieved total freedom from suffering, then we don't have to abandon the cause of suffering, because the cause of suffering, you're not left with any cause of suffering to be abandoned. Is number two. Then although the truth of the cessation is to be actualized, there's nothing to be actualized, which means that you've already actualized everything. What is now left there for you to actualize new? There's nothing left there for you to be actualized. And finally, although that the path leading to the cessation is to be practiced or meditated upon, there's nothing to be meditated upon. Okay, these are 12 form what is known as the 12 recitations or the repetitions of the Buddhist teachings on the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so these are the Four Noble Truths. And then the next is, on the basis of the Four Noble Truths, then we see that truth of suffering, truth of cause of suffering, and then the truth of cessation of suffering. Related to truth of cessation of suffering, we speak about the three jewels: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Even these three lines, how a learned person invokes this faith. Invoke this faith when you recite these three lines, and how somebody who's not at all learned, when reciting these three lines, invokes this faith is very different. Say somebody who's very learned about all these texts like Mulamadhyamakakarika, the emptiness, Dorji, so forth, when they recite just these three lines, that suffices reading all these texts. It's not just metaphorically, or it's not just metaphorically, or it's not just say the exaggeration. This is reality. It's very different. So when you say Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, I go for refuge in the Buddha. So you see that in the light of somebody, enlightened being who truly manifests the real dharma, that is the ultimate reality, ultimate expansive reality, where all the elaborations dissolve. All these elaborations dissolve. Sickness, aging, death. And then they say the happiness, suffering, good, bad, everything dissolves. And this is the ultimate blissful experience. That is a Buddha. So when you say Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, this is how learned person will feel the refuge. Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami. So when you experience that within you, all these fears, anxiety, stress, they all dissolve in this ultimate expanse of the emptiness. They all dissolve in this experience. So there, the mind, the involuntary movement, say pulled, involuntary push and pull and push, that stops in that experience, where you realize that all are just coming, nothing really from the object, is all coming from this subject. When you profoundly realize there's all this involuntary pull and push stops, that experience is the real dharma. Is the real dharma. Dharma is to protect you. That protects you from all the fears. So what is the fear? The fear is something there which makes you to move in a state involuntarily. And then the next is the act of fear. Act of fear is your mind feels so apprehensive, where you don't have the ease. You have to run away. So this movement, involuntary movement, is involved. So the dharma is the protection, the real protection, where you don't have to run. You don't have to run in time, in space. You'll feel that. when you experience this, the real Buddha within yourself, you said that you are perfectly protected from all fears of life. So that is the dharma. Dharmam sharanam gacchami. Then sangam sharanam gacchami. Anybody who has a profound experience of emptiness with these texts, the moment you see somebody of the wow, that's amazing, right? Say sometimes there are some what we call as the yogis. In the olden time, when these people are actually there, you will not treat them as yogis, you will treat them as eccentrics. Eccentrics meaning people, that they say, some people say some crazy. You may call them as crazy, you may label them as crazy. But today, after 100 years, 200 years, people revere them as yogis. In actuality, what is happening was that in those days, those people, when they really actualize this experience inside, for them, all these things, okay, say, the weather's cold, I should have this, weather's hot, I should have this, okay, then I should have good meal, let's go for, for adventure, or for trekking, or let me have, the iPhone 12, and let me have, there's something nice. Today, let me pamper myself, right? All these things, they simply transcend because these are like the plays of the small children's games. Small children's game. For the small children, these games really matter for the small children. In the dream matters. When you come out, the dream doesn't matter. When you become adults, the small children's game do not really matter. I remember, okay, Ridvi, how old are you? 6 years old? Ridvi, tell me, how old are you?
6.
6, yes. I remember when I was 6. When I was 6, I was in school, boarding school. And then we did not have a personal toys, games, and so forth. And then all the small children, they have the common toys. And I was always think of, okay, this toy, when I was 6, I was always think of, okay, this toy is very good, this I'll give to my father, this toy is very good, this I'll give to my sister. Until I distribute, actually this doesn't at all belong to me. It's for all the people, right? So what I'm saying is that these really matter to these young minds, small children. So now if I say that, okay, this toy will go to my father, this toy will go to my mother, people think that you're crazy. You're getting it? Okay. So the point is that, so what I'm saying is that these things do matter when you are at that young age, when you are, not mentally matured. And then the dreams matter when you are in the dream. So samsara matters when you're in samsara. Whereas when you wake up, samsara doesn't matter. Nirvana doesn't matter. Dreams do not matter when you wake up. You're getting it? So this is where, say, when you say the dharmam, the sangam sharanam gacchami. So some people, through their deep realization, what they do is that, it's like very eccentric. And ordinary people will for sure describe them as eccentric. And in fact, Milarepa, the incredibly great yogi who became enlightened within a single lifetime. So sometimes you read his biography, you will see that the initial phase of his life, when he was a young boy, young man, and then going through the training, we could get a feeling that he was a very serious person, serious, not too serious, but serious and decent and serious. And then, what we call as him having achieved enlightenment, or around that part, he, at times he became very, some of these, what he did can be seen as very eccentric. So one time what he was doing was that he saw some young girls coming, young girls who who are just lost in their own world, the fantasy of the youth. And then and of course, Milarepa, because of his realizations, he could see the karmic connection. So what he did was that he deliberately on the road, and then it doesn't matter to him. In any ways, he's the whole body is not. He must not have been taking the bath for months and months and months. And the dresses, they're all very dirty, very all shabby, right? It doesn't matter for him. And mentally, he's already enlightened. It doesn't matter even, it matters even less. So what he did was, on the road, he just lie down. On the road, he lie down, which was the only way by which these girls can come. He lying down, and that to cross, that, if they want to cross it, they have to jump over him. He deliberately did like this. And the girls, maybe 3 or 4 girls coming here, so they're seeing Geshe Milarepa, but not being able to identify him. They just saw him as a beggar there, a very physically very thin, slim, weak, and the old and very shabbily dressed, and as a beggar. So what they said was that they covered the nose, feeling that he must be stinking. So they covered the nose and then said prayers. Oh, may we never take birth. We never take birth like this beggar in the future. They said this prayer. And Geshe Milarepa, very eccentric. So he just opened his eyes. He did not even move. He opened his eyes and just smiled. Gave a smile, very sarcastic smile. And these girls, what's happening? And then he said, you the young girls, even if you pray that you become one like me, you will not become. Even if you pray, please make us become one like this beggar, you will not become. Don't worry, you don't have to pray that you may not be born like me. Right? Even if you pray that you be born, you will not be born like this. You don't have to worry. Then they sense something different, something very holiness or the sanctity there. And then they ask, are you Geshe Milarepa? He must be Geshe Milarepa. And then finally, it's all because of karmic connection. Even for them to meet with Geshe Milarepa, unless they have a very strong karmic connection, so that is not possible. So they become extremely, devout students, disciples of Geshe Milarepa. Okay, so this is one part. Okay, so on the dharmam charan, sangam charanam gachami. So the sangha, people who are actually realizing this or going in the path, treading the path to realize the experience where you are totally freed from the likes, dislikes of the dream. You're not being affected by the likes, dislikes of the dream at all. So these people, when he says sangam charanam gachami, you see them, and with this incredible compassion to share, wanting to share this experience with all the dear sentient beings. So that experience, when it comes to you, you say sangam charanam gachami. So this is the difference. So same words, Buddham Sharanam Gachami, Dharmam Sharanam Gachami, Sangam Sharanam Gachami. Same word, same three lines, which would take like a half a minute. Say a quarter of a minute said by a learned person, said by a non-learned person. Time consumed same, but the meditate explanation is just no comparison. One is the unit is one, the other one is a million times. What makes this difference? Because of knowledge. If you have this profound knowledge, so this knowledge and experience, that is determined by your reflection. And how much you reflected upon, that is how rich is your reflection, that is determined by how rich you are studied. So study, reflection, and meditation. These are the 3 steps which will really make your Dharma practice so effective. So the point is that instead of just dreaming of becoming one like Geshe Milarepa, right? Okay, I may be Geshe Milarepa, right? Maybe, who knows? I may be Geshe Milarepa, right? I may have the same the propensity to Geshe Milarepa. I don't really study, I don't really reflect, and suddenly I meet with the teacher, and then awakening happens. Okay, if this is an expectation, we are fooling ourselves. Joseph Milarepa, out of 7 billion human beings, Joseph Milarepa happened in 11th century. In 11th century, maybe like 5 billion human beings or 4 billion human beings. Or 4 billion human beings, only one Joseph Milarepa came. You're getting it? I don't expect that each one of us, I may be the second Joseph Milarepa, so I don't need to study. Actually, we feel lazy studying, right? If this happens, we are fooling ourselves. So if you really want to be a Joseph Milarepa, the best thing is study, reflect, meditate in this life, and then with this very rich knowledge that you've acquired, and try best to practice it. And in the next lives, guaranteed that you just read it. It happened as a young boy, like Ritvi, like this age, you read, you happen to meet with a text. Somebody brings, a text. It so happened to be like Nagarjuna. You read it and you understand something. It's so profound. Somebody explains it. It's so profound. And then the elders will be so fascinated. How come that this young girl, how come that this young boy is understanding so profoundly, right? This is how you manifest yourself as Joseph Milarepa. You manifest yourself as Guru Padma Sambhava. You manifest yourself as Sakya Pandita or Joseph Lama Tsongkhapa and so forth. This is how you manifest yourself as somebody in the future lives. So in this life, the best thing is not to fool ourselves, not to deceive ourselves. Study, reflect, and meditate. And then this tendency, this trend, you try to spread, encourage others to follow same, so that everybody will make their life meaningful, find their life meaningful. Okay, this is one part, the Four Noble Truths. Then the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And the three jewels, so why I'm saying all these things is because we need these as a background for the chapter 24. And of the three jewels, the third one, Sangam Charanam Gacchami. Sangam, Sangha, and the Sangha, technically speaking, Sangha means anybody who realized emptiness directly. Anybody, whether you're girl or boy, it doesn't matter. Whether you are monastic or non-monastic, it doesn't matter. Whether you are Tibetan, non-Tibetan, it doesn't matter. Anybody who realizes emptiness directly, or whether you're Buddhist or non-Buddhist, it doesn't matter. Anybody who realizes emptiness directly, that person is known as Sangha. So, in a particular context, in the context of the personal liberation seekers, that is what is known as the 8 Sangha members. 8 Sangha members. And these 8 Sangha members are easy to know. Just know 4, and then from this 4 you can see the 8 easy. And what are the 4? Number 1 is known as stream enterers. Number 2 is known as once returner. Number 3 is known as no more returner. And number 4, Arhat. Let me repeat it. Stream enterer, once returner, no more returner, and Arhat. So with these 4, we see that these 4 are the 4 fruits: the fruit of the stream enterer, the fruit of once returner, fruit of no more returner, fruit of Arhatship. The 4 fruits. And 4 fruits, we see that there are 2 sets of people. There are 2 sets. One set who are aspiring to achieve these 4 fruits. They are known as they are known as enterers. Somebody who's entering, or who's striving to enter to achieve these goals. So the 4 enterers, and there are a set of 4 people who are experiencing the results. These are known as the abiders, who abide in that resultant experience. The 4 enterers and 4 abiders, total 8. These 8 are known as the 8 Sangha members. Okay, this is one information that we need to have. Then the next information that we need to have is that yeah, so that's good enough. So we need this information. this information for us to understand chapter 24. Okay. Now, so this chapter 24, we see that this is a dialogue. This is like a debate going between, technically, a debate going between okay, first let me put it in a very simple terms. Debate going on between somebody in the dream and somebody who's outside the dream. Okay, let's say I'm dreaming of being in, let's say where? Okay, let's say I'm dreaming of being in White House. Okay, let's say I'm dreaming of being in White House as the President of America. And you know that I'm a Tibetan. There's no way by which I can become the President of America. But you know that it was just my dream. Okay, so I'm in dream, you're outside your dream. You're outside the dream. You are in a waking state, and I'm the dream. So I say that, yes, I am the White House, I'm the President of America. And you said you're not. You're getting it? Because you are not in dream, I'm in dream. So because I'm in dream, I'm being affected by the dream. I thought the dream is real. And you know that he was just dreaming. Dreaming is just what your mind makes up. It's not real. So this is a debate happening between you and me, you, the one who has woken up, and me, who is still in the dream, who thinks the dream is real. You're getting it? This is debate happening between these two people. Okay. In other words, Acharya Nagarjuna, who is woken up from the dream, and the opponents who are still in the dream, being affected by the dream. So the debate is happening between these two. Okay, now let's see. Examination of the Four Noble Truths. Oh, look at this. Okay. Chapter 24, examination of the Four Noble Truths. Okay. If all of this is empty, neither would arising nor ceasing exists, then for you it follows that the Four Noble Truths would not exist. One thing which is accepted by Acharya Nagarjuna, who is woken up from the sleep, is woken up from the dream, and the one who is inside the dream, both of them, for them, the Four Noble Truths is very important. And then the stanza 1 through to stanza 6 is a position of the opponents who believe the dream is real, who believe in objective existence, who believe things to be true, things to be independently real, who believe in things to be objectively real. Okay, stanza 1 through to stanza 6 is the position of the opponents who try to argue with Acharya Nagarjuna, saying that everything is real. In other words, in the dream, saying that what I'm seeing is real, is not dream. Okay, so they are saying if all of this is empty, if all what we are seeing, what we're experiencing, if all of this is empty of objective reality, if all of this is empty of objective reality, which means from the object there's nothing there, then for them existence and objective existence mean the same. Because in the dream, the dream flower and the flower is same. What you really see is the dream flower. For you, that is a flower. So those in the dream, the flower and dream flower, these two are same. So likewise for the opponents, flower and objective flower, these two are same. So these two are same, these two are synonymous to the extent that if you reject one, you reject the other. when you say that there's no objective flower, you are also rejecting also rejecting the flower. When you say there's no objective flower, also rejecting the flower. So if all of this is empty, if whatever we're experiencing, if this is empty of objective reality, objective existence, then they all should be non-existent. Non-existent. This is the opponent's debate against Nagarjuna. If you say that nothing exists, then neither would arising nor ceasing exists. So arising and ceasing. This is extremely important concept, arising and ceasing. Arising and ceasing. In fact, we see that the whole our existence, this revolves around these two phenomena, arising and ceasing. I say the composite phenomena, which the Buddha said, all composite phenomena are impermanent. When the Buddha taught it, composite phenomena is marked by these two characteristics, arising and ceasing. And for example, let's say that, okay, at the 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was younger, now I'm old. Again, say the youth ceased and the old age is arising. Okay, 2018, no COVID. 2019, end of 2019, then the COVID arises, and the non-COVID ceased. Now, on the verge to cease the COVID because of the vaccines. Again, the non-COVID or the freedom from COVID is on the verge to arise, and the COVID is on the verge to cease. So this is how the ceasing and arising, this marks the whole universe. Whole universe is operating on a basis of cause and effect, and the cause and effect is grounded on the concept of the arising and ceasing. As the effects come into arising, then the causes they cease. This is extremely important phenomena. On the basis of the concept of the ceasing and arising, then the whole universe is operating, including the Four Noble Truths. So it says, neither would arising nor ceasing exist. Then for you, it follows that Four Noble Truths would not exist. Because for the Four Noble Truths, we see that there are two sets. The first set, the truth of the suffering and the truth of cause of suffering. Truth of suffering is the result. The cause of suffering is the cause, which means as the result arises, then the truth, the cause ceases. So ceasing and arising. Likewise, the truth number 3 and 4. The truth of cessation is the result. It's the namesake, the result, namesake, and the truth of the truth of the path, the cessation, is the cause in a loose sense. So again, we see that by practicing the truth of the path within cessation, you achieve the truth of cessation in the form of the result. So we see that again, these two are like say in a loose sense, these two are like cause and effect. So cause and effect is governed by the arising and ceasing. If the arising and ceasing cannot be posited, because arising, nothing really exists objectively, you are in a way denigrating the Four Noble Truths, which is the ground for all the Buddha's teachings. The ground, the first teaching of Buddha is on the Four Noble Truths, and whether somebody follows the Theravada Buddhism or Chinese Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism, and this is ground. Four Noble Truths is the basic framework of the Buddha's teachings. You cannot then account for the Four Noble Truths. And if you don't account for the Four Noble Truths, then how come that you accept yourself as a follower of the Buddha or a Buddhist? Stanza 2. If the Four Noble Truths do not exist, then knowledge, abandonment, meditation, and actualization would not be feasible. Okay, now given that we have already studied the three sets of the four teachings on the Four Noble Truths, so now it is about the second teaching, second set of theme, the fourth. That is the truth of the sufferings to be identified. Identified meaning you have to know the knowledge, or it's a matter of translation. You have to know the truth of the suffering. You have to abandon the truth of the cause of suffering, which is number 2, abandonment. Then number 3 is the actualization. So the order of this, don't worry too much. It's the when it is put in the written form. So for the meter and for the easy pronunciation and so forth, easy saying. So this order is altered, otherwise it's just same. Same, the knowledge of the first. Then the knowledge, abandonment, meditation, and actualization would not be feasible. Knowledge of the suffering, and the abandonment of cause of suffering, then the actualization of the cessation suffering, number 3, and number 4, meditation of the truth of the path of cessation. So these 4 practices associated with the Four Noble Truths will not make sense, would become non-feasible. Okay, number 3, if these things do not exist, then if these things, meaning the Four Noble Truths and the 4 practices associated with Four Noble Truths, if they don't exist, the 4 fruits as well will not arise. 4 fruits meaning fruits which we learned earlier: the fruit of the Sri Mantra, the fruit of the Once Returner, the fruit of No More Returner, and the fruit of Acharya. So these are the fruits, or the attainments that you get with the practice of the Four Noble Truths. So the 4 fruits as well will not arise. Without the 4 fruits, if you don't have the 4 fruits, there will be no abiders, the 4 abiders and the 4 enterers. There will be no abiders in the fruits, nor will they be the enterers, which means the 4 abiders and the 4 enterers will not be possible. So these the 8 constitute the 8 Sangha members. Number 4, if the 8 persons, meaning 8 Sangha members, do not exist, the Sangha will be non-existent. If the Four Noble Truths do not exist, there will be no true Dharma. So the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So Sangha is, you are in a way denigrating Sangha. And then if you say that, you are also denigrating Dharma, because the real Dharma, which I explained earlier, Dharmam Charanam Gacchami. When you say that, I go for refuge in the Dharma, the learned people will understand, will say this in a very profound insight, where the cleansing of your mind happens so fast and on a great level. If the noble truths do not exist, there will be no true Dharma. So the real Dharma is the Dharma of the Dharma is the real protection. What is the real protection? Protection from all the fears of life. And these fears of life are attracted by the mental defilements. So mental defilements, you are freed from the mental defilements. That is the Dharma, cessation of the mental defilements, the freedom from the mental defilements. So the truth number of the Four Noble Truths, truth number 3, the cessation of suffering, cessation of mental defilements. That is the real Dharma. And truth number 4, which takes you to that experience, the truth of the path leading to cessation. So these 2 are the real Dharma. In future, if ever somebody asks you, what is the real Dharma in the context of Buddhism? When you say Dharmam Charanam Gacchami, just say that of the Four Noble Truths, truth number 3 and truth number 4. These 2 are the real Dharmas. So otherwise, for the normal people, the usual people, who are not too learned, very learned, then they will say that they are not, if they are not so learned, what is Dharma? The books, prayer books, they are the Dharma, and the scriptures, they are the Dharma. Oh, these are symbolic Dharmas. The real Dharma is the one which really protects you. What protects you is the quality of the truth of cessation, which is the third noble truth, and the truth of path, which is cessation, fourth noble truth. These 2 are the real Dharmas. If the Four Noble Truths do not exist, then you cannot account for the true Dharma. So Dharma is gone, Sangha is gone. Number 5, if there's no true Dharma and Sangha, if there's no true Dharma, then who will achieve that Dharma? And this Sangha will eventually, the highest of the Sangha is the Buddha. So if the Dharma and Sangha are missing, then the Buddha will not be feasible. If there is no true Dharma and Sangha, how can there be a Buddha? If one conceives the idea of emptiness, so this is opposition coming from the opponents. If you are in Nagarjuna, if you conceive the idea of emptiness of objective existence, then the 3 jewels are contradicted. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. First, the Four Noble Truths are contradicted. Then the 4 fruits are contradicted. Then the 8 Sangha members are contradicted. Then the 3 jewels are contradicted. So if you contradict the 3 jewels, how can you be the follower of the Buddha? You can't claim yourself to be the Buddhist or the follower of Buddha. Okay, number 6. Hence, it contradicts everything. So the tenability of fruits. Tenability of fruits meaning that, okay, So now we have to okay. I want to say now the weather is the really cold in the hill stations and then in India like Dharamsala and so forth. Okay, I want to keep myself a little warmer. So for that matter, I have to move from Dharamsala to Delhi. When you do that, you're putting effort. You're putting effort. You're putting effort. You're putting effort so that you will have the fruit of warmer weather. So by putting effort, moving towards Delhi, then you expect to have the fruit of the less cold or warmer weather. So there's a fruit and there's corresponding cause. So this cause and effect is operating only with the arising and ceasing. If everything is non-existent as objectively, then arising and ceasing cannot be posited. Then the fruit and cause cannot be posited. Number one. And the dharma and non-dharma also will make no sense. Dharma meaning that you do good things, you will have the happiness. You do bad things, you will have the miseries. So this is how the dharma operates and non-dharma operates. So this again on the basis of the cause and effect, again on the basis of the arising and ceasing. So again the dharma and non-dharma concepts will all become irrelevant. And then the conventional norms of the world. In the world, all this the world operates on the basis of convention. For example, the traffic rules. The traffic rules operate on the basis of conventions. There's some in some nations, some countries, you have to drive to the right side, and other countries you drive to the left side. So all these conventionalities, somebody creates convention, somebody follows convention. Again, there's some cause and effect. Again, this cause and effect. All these things will become totally meaningless if if you reject things as objectively real. So these are the opponents' rejection. So thus far, stanza 1 through to stanza 6, Acharya Nagarjuna was simply listening to what the opponents have to say. Now stanza 7 down is the response from Acharya Nagarjuna. Okay, we say that this understanding of yours of emptiness and the purpose of emptiness and of the meaning of emptiness is incorrect. Thus you perceive contradictions in us. Okay, so Acharya Nagarjuna is saying that, okay, now if you're done with your arguments, now let me give the rebuttal. My rebuttal is that all these arguments, all these blames that you are putting on me, all these the arguments, debates that you put on me, it's not because that I have these problems, it's because you have the problem. What problem? You have 3 problems. One is you don't know what exactly is emptiness, number 1. Number 2, you don't know the purpose of emptiness. What's the purpose of understanding emptiness, number 2? And number 3, you don't know the meaning of emptiness. Anybody who is deprived of these 3 points, these 2 points will surely perceive contradiction, will misperceive contradictions in us who reject objective existence. Okay, so now comes the rejection from Acharya Nagarjuna. First, we have to study in more detail of these 3 points. 3 points. What exactly is emptiness? Then what's the meaning of emptiness? Then the purpose of emptiness. The 3 points. Okay, we'll stop here for today. And if you have some questions, I'll be happy to take some questions. Anybody? If you have questions? Anybody? Any questions you might have to make me think more? Anybody?
Geshe, I have a question.
Please identify yourself. Okay, Pallavi. Yes.
It's just a simple question I realized in this paragraph. Is the difference between when he says that we say that this understanding of yours of emptiness and the meaning of emptiness, I don't mean the same but different.
Oh,
It's mentioned as three parts.
this is a good question. Thank you. Did you study Nagarjuna's text before? Pallavi? Huh? Did you
No,
study this
I
text
haven't.
before? Oh, you must be joking. Or you must have studied in your past life.
I haven't.
Okay, this is your question
It's a
is
little
very.
bit of
Your question really hits the
little bit.
target. I'm quite impressed. Okay, so so these two things seem to be very similar. The last stanza 6. Okay, these 2 points seem to be very similar. Yes. So what's the distinction? That's good. Okay. Okay. First, let us have the screen sharing. Okay. Hence, it contradicts. No. Yes. Number 7. We say that this understanding of yours. Number 1, of emptiness. Number 2, the purpose of emptiness. Number 3, the meaning of emptiness. Of the 3, Pallavi is interested to ask of emptiness, number 1, and number 3, the meaning of emptiness. So these two seem very similar. So what's the difference? Is this your question?
Yes,
Pallavi, is this your
yes,
question?
Geshe. That's the question. Yes, that's the question.
Okay. Okay. So maybe in a past life, Nagarjuna told you that, okay, next life somebody will teach you this, and this is complicated. You ask him. Okay. This is a good question. Thank you. Okay, so the idea is that the first one, of emptiness. When you say of emptiness, this is about how you identify what this emptiness is like. What are the let's say the okay, say this emptiness per se, emptiness per se. When you get it, when you feel this, when you feel it. When you feel it, meaning when you experience this emptiness, what is that like? What is that like? When you experience emptiness, what is that like? Number 1 is the experiential. Then number 3, the meaning of emptiness is how this emptiness should be understood in the context of dependent origination. The meaning that it does not mean nothingness; it should mean dependent origination. And then understanding dependent origination, then you see dependence on arising, then ceasing happens. Dependence on ceasing, arising happens. So dependent origination is explained. Emptiness to mean dependent arising. So that is and then on that basis, the entire functionality will be explained. How all this world, the whole universe is operating on a basis of cause and effect, on a basis of the arising ceasing, will be explained on the basis of dependent origination, which in turn is the meaning of emptiness. So the emptiness does not mean nothingness. Emptiness means the dependent origination. So that is the meaning. In other words, where in emptiness, the flip side of emptiness is to understand the whole functionality of the world, conventionality, or the functionality of the conventional world. This is going to be explained on the basis of the dependent origination. The meaning of emptiness means understanding of that not to be interpreted as nothingness, but as the meaning of dependent origination. Whereas the of emptiness per se is what is that like? What do you experience when you experience emptiness? What's the experience like? And the meaning of emptiness will not be the experience of emptiness. It's not the experience of emptiness. It is the emergent property. Is the emergent property of the emptiness understanding. Meaning of emptiness is how, say, when you experience emptiness, when you're really deep into this experience of emptiness, you don't have the experience of the conventionalities. But the same emptiness can be seen from the different side as the conventionalities, as the dependent origination. In other words, meaning of emptiness, we study the dependent origination concept, and the first one, emptiness per se, that's about what that is like to experience emptiness. That is the difference. Very good question. Thank you, Ravi. Okay, anybody else?
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. And then tomorrow we're going to study all these three things. Tomorrow we're going to study these three things, and you will get a very clear picture. Good. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay. If not, anybody? Anybody's question? Okay. If not, then we'll do the we go do the end prayer. First, we'll do the Ye Dharma mantra. Okay, we'll recite this mantra. We'll do the screen sharing, and we'll all recite this together. As we recite this, the meanings. The first, we'll recite the meaning of the mantra first. It says all phenomena arise from causes. Again, called arising, arising, ceasing. Arising is taught here as explicit, and the ceasing is taught here implicit. The causes, all phenomena, particularly the phenomena of the miseries, they all arise from the cause of seeing the dream as real. The cause here is seeing the dream as real, that is, seeing things as objectively real. So what are these causes? What are these causes? The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The Tathagata means the Buddha. And how to bring an end to this cessation, how to bring an end to the causes or the cessation of causes is by waking up. Wake up and you realize that the dream is dream, it's not real, and then you'll be freed from being affected by the dream. And this is total freedom. This is what the great seer taught. Great seer means the Buddha. Okay, so this meaning, so we'll recite the mantra now. And most of us, we know how to recite this mantra. And those of us who do not know how to recite this mantra, just listen to us and join us. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato yavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashramanaye swaha. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato yavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashramanaye swaha. Om ye dharma hetu prabhava hetum tesham tathagato yavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashramanaye swaha. Okay, we'll do the end prayer. So let us pray that His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the true source of joy and happiness of this earth, that he lives long and that his wishes are fulfilled spontaneously. Let us also pray that all these great learning centers of the Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma, Gelug, and from the Theravada tradition, Chinese tradition, all these learning centers, great learning monastic centers, may they thrive in the activities of study, meditation, and then serve as the real, say, the Mount Everest, from where all the rivers, the rivers of the nectar flow to all the beings, and that the miseries will come to an end and the happiness will become infinite. And let us pray that COVID-19 subsides as soon as possible, and that effectively the vaccines will be distributed to all the places in the world, and that everybody comes back to normalcy in terms of the living. May all the education centers, like schools, universities, colleges, institutions, and so forth, may they function as normal very soon, so the students' education does not suffer. And let us also pray that all the people, the medical professionals, they come to total healing, and all the people who are sick, hospitalized, they get well, they recover as soon as possible. Okay, with this mind, let us say these prayers together. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chavise Tenzin Gyatso, please remain at samsara ends. Just as a brave magician and Samadhi too realize things they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow the perfect example. I dedicate all these rules of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the Buddhas who appeared in the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. Anjo semjo remboche, maige panam ke gyoroche, yabo nyambo meboya, one kono pevaresho. May the Supreme Bodhicitta, there is no rest in the rising groom, may their wishes arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I truly remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all beings without exception into that enlightened state. I dedicate the merits thus gathered to rescue the realization that is in the prayers of all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas the 3 times, and to the upholding of Dharma of teaching realization. May I in all life, through the force of this merit, never separate from the fullness of the Mahayana vehicle, and accomplish all the stages of the path, renunciation, bodhicitta, perfect in the 2 stages. With wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge to the Triple Gem. I confess the negativities individually. I rejoice in the virtues of all the beings. I hold the precious Buddhahood in my heart. By the power of practicing and supplicating to you, may all be free from sickness, poverty, and conflicts. May Dharma and the auspiciousness proliferate in all the places where we abide. A part of the union of emptiness and compassion is loosely explained by the paternal Buddha, Dharma, and the beings of land which knows, where the lotus hold the Tenzin Gyatso, we supplicate you that your wishes are fulfilled spontaneously. May the operations, the evil thoughts and deeds of the negative forces of humans and non-humans who harbor marriage through perverted prayers against the teachings of the Buddhas be totally vanquished through the path of truth and 3 jewels. In all my lives, never separate from perfect gurus, enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualitative stages of the paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajratara. Okay, we'll recite the Heart Sutta mantra 3 times. Throughout my future lifetimes, may I always be guided by the Manjushri and be able to uphold the Dharma in general and the teachings of the Dependent Dorji in particular, even across my life. Gate gate aragate Arasamgate bodhi swaha yatha Om gate gate Paragate Arasamgate bodhi swaha yatha Om gate gate aragate arasamgate bodhi swaha. Okay, I'll see you all tomorrow again. See you, Love, Pravinji. See you tomorrow, and all of you see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Geshe.